Hello, and welcome back to Scholastically Natalie, where I apologize for a late video. I completely forgot which day it was because I had Monday off, so that just threw off my whole concept of time, and that's shaky on a good week. Today I figured we could take a little peek back at something I last edited on April 16th, 2018. So this is a Sorry, I had to think. This is a 3-year-old piece that I wrote, that I still do like the idea of. I guess I just never realized how much time had passed since I had been working on it, and I have focused more of my effort on The Unrelenting Dawn. I'm not sure how entirely much brain power I have today, partially because I've been completely entranced with the antics of Foodie Beauty tonight. I have tried a new papadilla. I've tried papadillas for the first time, which I can say was pretty tasty, although I could do without, like, the burnt edges and, like, the Parmesan on the edge, because it just tasted smoky to me, and I didn't like that. And for the update on my Panera recipe, I made it. It has turned out that it is too spicy for me. I must have miscalculated something when I was putting it in, or just letting it sit in the sauce overnight did something, or I don't know. I did something somehow, because when I had it in the restaurant, it wasn't that much, but it was spicy for me, and thus I cannot eat it, so I'm bringing it home with me to my family to see if they'll eat it. Anyways, I think that is all the updates I have for you guys. Let me know how your week has been so far. Did you get Monday off? I know it's kind of unusual that my workplace gives me Monday off. I'm kind of used to it from going to college and, like, school and stuff. Did you guys get snowed in? I forgot about the giant snowstorm that we just had. I just didn't leave. But some people in my apartment complex did have a rough time getting their cars out and about when that snowstorm happened. Although now it's almost cleared up. Well, I should say cleared up the main spots where our cars are. There's, like, piles of snow as tall as me around the edges of our parking lot, and I don't see those going away anytime soon. So going out to get my mail was real fun today. So yeah, let me know how your week went. How did your time with the massive amounts of snow go? You know, the usual. So the hesitant title for this one chapter of a story that I don't even know if I finished it is called The Book of Reality. It's a concept I actually came up with my cousin, I think, oodles ago. But you get the premise. I was inspired by so many things. Having, like, pieces of work, like snippets from other books and stuff, be present within the chapters to, like, expand your world building and explain things, rather than just have your characters do it in an info dump, which is kind of nice, because I will admit I used to skip those. And then I, like, got partway through and I was like, oh wait, those are actually kind of useful. So that was a fun realization for me. So this begins with: long ago there was a book. In it was written the world, past, present, and future. We definitely need an and there. It makes it sound a bit more concrete. With the book came a pen. It could change anything inside the book. Using those two items, the owner could bend reality to their will. Because of the danger of such an artifact, it was kept in secret by appointed caretakers, mages selected to protect the book with their lives. No, that's the right word. By Renka, from the Rise and Fall of Westerfold. I feel like Westerfold is an actual place. Let's look. Nope, that's not what I want to know. Westerfold Fantasy. Okay, maybe not. Oh, this is the wrong tab. I'm a little hesitant about what this is gonna sound like. Oh my goodness, I'm like pre-embarrassed before we've even gotten there. Uriel groaned as a ray of sunlight reached his eyes through his open window. The boy rolled over with a grumble, burrowing his face in his plush pillows to further avoid the disturbing light. He had stayed up far too late last night at their small village's pub, the only place to serve even vaguely acceptable food, discussing the sudden influx of soldiers marching through their town. Of course, their community was right on the edge of the main road, and those in the military undoubtedly needed to eat, but after the soldiers passed their village, there were no more habitable places for them to go. The only place beyond Redmore was the border between Uriel's kingdom, Agradia, and their neighbor, Larlet. I really hate the name Larlet. Oh no. I don't know, we're just gonna highlight it. Because I do not like that name, but I currently can't think of a better one. Bam. The 18-year-old yelped as he was grabbed by his ankles and pulled out from under his covers onto the hardwood floor in an explosion of light, pain, and chilly morning air. Uriel stared down at the woven rug beneath his head and moaned in pain, still half asleep. The aching teen raised annoyed emerald eyes to take in the figure of his best friend, Sten. Now what am I trying to do here? Is this a separate paragraph? Or are we doing that? Definitely a separate paragraph. Uriel had known Sten since the two of them were still in wrappings, watched by the kind old lady down the path, whom they both still called Grandma to this day. They had attended the neighborhood school together, learning until they turned 16 to be apprenticed to the master of their chosen craft. Sten had chosen to be a blacksmith, while Uriel, his name's hard to pronounce, expressed interest in being a healer. The teen, who was a whole head taller than Uriel, grinned evilly at his best friend's sound of pain. Sten quickly scolded the forgetful boy with a mock sigh of impatience. Really, I didn't think you'd forget your own grandmother's birthday. The black-haired teen trailed off with a smirk as Uriel's emerald eyes widened and he shot to his feet, complaining the entire time. Why didn't you remind me, Sten? Gran's going to kill me for this, Uriel exclaimed, hurriedly putting his brown hair up into a messy ponytail. Let's see. Gran's going to be so angry. Gran will never forgive me. You know she'll kill me if I'm late this year. Sten merely laughed in reply as he threw a black pair of leggings at his friend's face. Uriel hefted the impact, his hair becoming even more tangled as he hurriedly pulled on a red tunic that marked him as an apprentice healer, followed by the hastily caught leggings. With a smile and wave in thanks, Uriel pulled on his amulet, grabbed his grandmother's present, and raced towards her home. Okay, I don't mind this. This was a time when I was very stern with myself, trying to implement character descriptions, just kind of like to be noted as we move through a story. So I'm not mad about that. Uriel's quick mind churned as he rushed up the dirt path leading to the small cottage where his grandmother, who was also the village's healer, lived. I think we can do better and say Uriel paid no mind. No mind to his surroundings. As he rushed up the dirt path leading to the small cottage where his grandmother, who was also the village's healer, lived. The seemingly ramshackle house stood on the top of a small hill, surrounded by carefully tended flower beds. A rickety wooden fence enclosed the property and shimmered in the sunlight, signifying that wards were woven throughout the fence. The teen quickly tapped his hand to the top of the gate as he opened it, letting the protective wards he had woven himself recognize him. The magic hummed in appreciation and seemed to grow stronger in his presence. I know I'm introducing magic, but where would she have been attacked if it wasn't in her house? We'll read the rest of the chapter and see. Uriel, is that you? His grandmother's voice echoed in the peaceful meadow, but it was a far cry from her normal commanding tone. It had become weak and reedy, trembling with something. Uriel couldn't identify. Why are you highlighted? Okay, that's weird. The teen's viridian eyes. We have had his eyes widen like 15 times. The teen raced. You know, sometimes we can just have action. The teen raced forward to burst through the door and fall flat on his face onto the neatly woven rug. Why is this my life? To burst through the door. The doorway rug out of place and slipping beneath his foot, sending him to the floor. The teen braced forward. We can just say the teen burst through the door, and that way this sentence becomes a lot less clunky. The teen burst through the door. Sliding on the out of place rug. That slipped beneath his foot. The cartilage in his nose clicking with the impact of the floor. There we go. Oh my gosh, that's so much better to describe that slightly, apparently complex series of events. The teen burst through the door, sliding on the out-of-place rug that slipped beneath his foot. See, we don't need that slipped. The teen burst through the door, sliding on the out-of-place rug beneath his foot, the cartilage in his nose clicking with the impact of the floor. As he scrambled upright, Uriel called back to his last remaining family member. Gran, are you okay? The silence in reply urged him further into the small cottage. What he found there made his spine straighten and his jaw clenched. The woman who had raised him since he was 3 was lying on the floor, blood pooling around her head. The sight of long white strands of hair dyed red by blood caused bile to rise in Uriel's throat, the harsh, acrid taste making his eyes water. The teen dropped to his knees next to his grandmother, heedless of the liquid that washed over his knees. Not washed, that splashed. Washed over implies a lot. That splashed his knees, his arm hair standing on edge. He stretched out his arm. Well, if he's on his knees, that splashed him. He stretched out his arm, hovering his palm over the aged woman's face, trying to calm himself enough to reach his magic. Remember, you? Remember, Uriel, emotions do not belong in healing. You can cry later, he scolded himself. With a slight gasp, the apprentice healer locked away the whirlwind of panic raging through his heart
and instead pulled his magic to the forefront of his mind. As Uriel mentally drew the simple runes for healing, his palm glowed a light violet. The beam of lavender magic sprung from his palm to envelop his grandmother's bone-white face, where it then focused on her forehead. Uriel breathed a sigh of relief as skin and bone began to knit together. The teen only hoped that he had arrived in time to save her life. Magic could only do so much. Soon, Uriel began to feel exhausted, as his magic raced out of him at an increased rate to heal the extensive damage wrought upon his grandmother. Well, you can just get rid of that at an increased rate. Because why would it increase? The pace slowed to a stop. And the deep weight of exhaustion settled into Uriel's bones. Uriel raised his aching head with a tired groan, only to have his eyes widen. Oh my god. Not a widening shock again. Oh my gosh, I really was obsessed with this, huh? I think it's because I was on, like, my shoujo stage, like, romance stage or whatever. I was watching a lot of anime, and it was all like, nutty! And then, like, the eyes would be wide. Oh, what have I done to myself? Let's see, only to balk at the faint light that trickled in through the window. It had been a high morning last he checked. The small teen dragged himself up, stooping to pick up his grandmother. The woman was light, as she always was, but to Uriel it felt as though she weighed more than a boulder. His arms trembled with debilitated weariness, and he hurriedly placed... Oh, my goodness. No, we don't need to hurriedly do anything. And he placed his only family member on the plush bed that was the only luxury the healer indulged in. The apprentice made a quick stop at the washroom, wetting a rag in the basin holding fresh water. It was enchanted to refill itself and to always be clean, which Uriel was currently very grateful for. If we want to emphasize his weariness, he staggered. He returned to carefully clean the crimson liquid out of his guardian's silver strands, in the hopes that she wouldn't be too upset when she woke. Knowing the woman wouldn't be able to rest so unkempt. As soon as she was deemed clean enough, Uriel slowly made his way to the neighboring guest room and slumped into the cozy pillows. Then moments his tired green eyes had closed, and the teen had drifted off to sleep. I want to be exhausted. I don't think we need to describe his eyes that much. Okay. Bong. Bong. The deep tolls of the bell lured Uriel out of his exhausted sleep. The slow, even sound permeated his dreams and wrapped itself around his thoughts. As the teen tried to open his eyes, he found that such a mountainous effort could not be made. Instead, Uriel noticed that he was cold, a deep-seated chill that came only from magic exhaustion. As he tossed and turned on the wide bed, struggling to find some sort of warmth, he found himself soothed by a warm touch on his brow. Uriel relaxed into the soft hand with a happy sigh, relieved that the chill on his forehead would soon abate. "Gran," Uriel murmured, barely able to get the words out of an aching throat. A soft, soothing kiss to his cheek reassured Uriel that his assumption was true. The boy coughed, a fiery ache growing in his chest that told Uriel he had been experiencing this for longer than he had initially assumed.
A warm rush of magic swooped through his chest. Oh my gosh, is this the second? Swooped through him. I'm going to say energy because we say magical right after that. Soothing his magical exhaustion into a dull ache instead of the deafening roar it had been. The long-haired team, not deafening, paralyzing, instead of the paralyzing. Maybe debilitating. Instead of the debilitating what? Illness it had been. The long-haired teen found his muscles easier to maneuver, and forced, we don't need to know what color his eyes are this often, and forced his eyes open to gaze upon the tired face of his grandmother. I was worried, you've been having fever dreams for 3 days, the older woman said, her eyes soft before they narrowed and her voice cracked like a whip. Don't you ever do that again. You were a breath away from dying without your magic. Uriel mentally flinched, knowing he'd be in for a long lecture on the signs and effects of magical exhaustion once he was recovered. He doesn't need to mentally flinch, he can just flinch. Parents being angry is always terrifying. You know what, since we're always describing Uriel's eyes, you can know that his grandma's eyes are brown. I couldn't just let you die, Uriel exclaimed, his raised volume calling a headache upon him with a vengeance. The boy groaned, holding his head as his temples pounded and his vision blurred dangerously. His grandmother gave a chiding sigh and leaned him back against the pillows once more. Haven't you figured it out yet, you foolish boy? For someone so smart you can be slow at times, she murmured. Uriel, I would rather die than have you killed to save me. That doesn't need to be capitalized. Uriel's eyes widened before a blush spread across his skin. Uriel shook his head to rid himself of his doubts, pushing aside the dizziness the act brought. We can just say cheeks. After his parents had abandoned him with the family matriarch, she had proven, through years of tests and tantrums, that she would not leave him too. Grandma, I couldn't let you die. Oh, we don't need a let. I don't regret it, Uriel said, grasping her close in a sudden rush of worry. He couldn't allow her to be killed. Ever. Then he remembered his real concern as he brought up his new thoughts. Grandma, who attacked you? The old lady looked worried as she hesitantly met his eyes. Uriel, the family of Rose has a sacred duty passed down the generations. Only one person and their chosen guardians were allowed to know, and only after being put through rigorous testing. I was attacked by men looking for what we call the Book of Reality. She explained. They succeeded in taking it. The exact powers of the book have been lost to time, but it is too dangerous to be loosed in the world. Luckily, they only got the book and not the necessary tool. What is the tool? Uriel demanded, his concern rising by the minute. He unconsciously clutched the stylized quill hanging around his neck from a leather cord. It was the first present his grandmother had ever gave him. You know what it is, she said, nodding her white head towards the quill his hand was wrapped around. In his shock, Uriel yanked his hand off of it to gape at her. He couldn't believe it. His grandmother had used him to defend an artifact? This is the quill that can change everything? Uriel held the quill before his eyes dubiously, inspecting the fine craftsmanship with a discerning eye. The dark wooden handle wrapped around a feather he couldn't identify, one that changed color with the light. The nub used... It's nib, isn't it? The nib. The nib used to write was made with gold, runes carved along the very tip. All in all, it didn't seem to be anything special, just an expensive quill. Uriel's dubious thoughts must have shown on his face, because his grandmother chuckled as she watched him. Yes, it is. You've been chosen as next guardian after I die, the aged woman informed him, her eyes downcast as she revealed that she had failed in her sacred duty. Though the Book of Reality does exist, to the rest of the world it is merely a fairy tale. Be careful who you trust with the secret, Uriel. The man I trusted betrayed me for a few gold, nearly killing me in the process. Deep pain was written across her crumpled features. The man dear to her had let her down too. Oh, grandmother, Uriel sighed, his face falling into lines of disappointment directed towards the unknown student. We don't know that it's a student. So we'll just put the stranger. I, of course, know that it's a student, but I should not be revealing it that early. And I see that was a fool. Parcel in his arms. Also fell to the floor. The paper soon soaked in red. Forgotten. Nope, we can just say he dropped letting... Oh, I figured it out. Good job, me. I knew I'd get there eventually. He let go of the parcel in his arms to let go of the parcel. He let go of the parcel to stretch out his arm. There we go. Need to fix that poor little sentiment. So, I think with this, I know that I didn't feel right writing all of this, but this definitely needs rewritten. The way this sounds, and especially with the way I have already, told you that it's gonna obviously be the book. I don't know, I definitely can't change it, but I don't know how. I think that I might have just gotten really inspired by Wizard's First Rule and how they kind of roll with everything, and a book that needs to be stolen. Although, of course, that one is in a slightly... well, in a very different way, because the main character knows nothing for quite a while. And I was also inspired by Legend of Zelda, of course, because when things begin in small towns, thinking of Twilight Princess. I did write some flavor text for the next few chapters. Had I known it would turn out this way, I never would have shown anyone what this artifact could do. Forgive me. Passage recovered from an ancient journal. Then we have, but the people rebelled, wanting to use the book for their own gain, and it was secreted away to be held in trust. The tools were kept undisclosed, kept separate so the guardian wouldn't be tempted. And so it was passed on, down the generations in secret, protecting the reality of the world. From Renka, the rise and fall of Westerfold. I really feel like Westerfold is a fantasy country, and I cannot for the life of me think of what it is. I want to say it's Game of Thrones, but I don't know if that's right, because I haven't read Game of Thrones. Anyways, that is a look at my ancient writing. Well, it's not really ancient. It's newer, but still old. Let me know what you guys think, how you think about this story concept, what I should name the enemy country, just how you're thinking. I am embarrassed to look back at this, but not as embarrassed as I was at the beginning of this, because it wasn't quite as bad. But oh my goodness, no, we do not need to know your character's eye colors, and no, they do not need to widen their eyes in shock all the time. It's not a thing people do in everyday life. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was at the very least mildly entertaining.